Recording in progress.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a nice coffee break. So this is going to be session number 2 for our monthly study intensive. And this is lecture number 19 for Avatamsaka Sūtra. Now, I'm going to pick up where we left off in the morning hours. We were talking about Four Noble Truths, and then I just wanted to point out while we were reading, we could read this as a, the process of practice, and that's one way. And also from a Mahayana Buddhist point of view, you also recognize this is also more like Shikisokuze-ku, Kusokuze-shiki. Because first two is a depiction of how we live as a rupa, shiki portion, and on the other hand, it's also supported by ku, emptiness. So this is a very interesting way of presenting this. So it's almost like a double layered, double entendre kind of explanation. So I really like to move on to kind of digging into this a little more. But before doing that, there was a question I received during the break. It is about this description of the world. We have been reading Avatamsaka Sūtra, and they've been depicting all these different type of worlds. So it's not from the particular person who gave me this question about what this world means, but some other people previously, some time ago, told me she thinks this is some kind of very mystical way of talking about multi-universe theory. So in another word, this is like an early, ancient wisdom about, current theory of the multiple universes. I don't think so at all. But yes, it is very interesting. They really use the word worlds all the time. But I just want to, point out one fact. This is an English translation from Chinese text, right? So this world is, maybe I should write this down on something. So let me open up the notes. Hold on one moment, please. Maybe this is good. So I'm going to use a shared screen. So instead of a erase board, I'm going to use the screen, shared screen. So this is the world is a translation of sekai or kai. So maybe sekai. So sekai is you can translate as a world. For instance, when we use the word world, sorry, in a really regular sense, like let's say world exposition or worldwide phenomena, or this world, which means there's a continent like American continent, Oceania, etc., and this actual planet. In contemporary language, we do use this word sekai. But also sekai can also be, the first kanji can be dropped off, and then you can simply say kai. So maybe I should write down in alphabet. And then I'm going to make it larger so you can see a little larger. So this is pronounced as a sekai, and this is just a kai. So, for instance, in a usage of this word, let's say I live in this New York City's one and only performing artists building, community building. So basically, these are the people who are in, let's say, entertainment world, yes, or in the realm of the work for entertainment. In Japanese, that's called, let's say, Geinokai. And it writes as so Geino is performing arts, and Kai is the world. But this word, how to say, this word Kai can be now is as an English translate as a community of performing arts, or a group of the people who are involved with performing arts, or there are lots of words like this. For instance, politician is called someone whose name in seikai. This is pronounced as seikai. Sei is politics, and kai is world. So this is a world of politics. If someone is involved with some kind of financial type of work, it is called zaikai. Zai is finance, kai is the world. So this is the usage of the word. So, so let's say breaking it down, remember Buddhist text is not some kind of fantastical, imaginary world. It is always talking about our own life, even if they use the some kind of a metaphor or symbolism, they are talking about our life. So I think it is a good idea to read this in the way like, let's say, in the world of the group of the people, in the community of the people who are involved with the politics, when they gather, it shows this way. And the group of the people, let's say, we have a tenants association. And when you go to the tenant association, most of the people who comes to the tenant association are still actively involved with the theater work, or retired actors and musicians, etc., etc. So I get to see the people of the world of entertainment, or world of performing arts. That's one thing. You can actually see this, and I'm sure each one of you have some sort of a community. You go to some community and you are in the world of, let's say, PTA, and you go to some world of block association, and sometimes you go to the party, where wives and mothers gather. So this is a mother's world. So that's one thing. So in another word, the particular chapter we are talking about is depicting wherever you go, it is really true, there are Four Noble Truths, and then each one of those community, it shows dukkha in different way, this way and this way. So that's one way to look at it. And another way to look at it is, I introduced this historic fact at the beginning of this lecture series, that on the process of creating Avatamsaka Sūtra, there are lots of merchants actually involved. As a matter of fact, on the process of spreading Buddha Dharma from northern India to Silk Road nations to China, it is very important to notice significant role merchants actually took. So particularly in Avatamsaka Sutra, there's an evidence. Many of those portions of the sutra originally was an independent sutra, probably was born in southern India. And in southern India, on the side of, I would say, western side, so this is the side of, not toward Indochina Peninsula, but it is more toward, let's say, Persia, Pakistan and Persia. That side is the very active route for the merchant ship goes to the northern portion of India and then bringing the products from southern India to northern India. Northern India was more affluent, so therefore they were buying products from southern India. So therefore, there are lots of images of ocean, and of course, those days, those products are brought by ships. So, and also, the type of the, how to say, word only the traveling merchants can know. So this is also quite interesting because right now we have this, like telecommunications and internets and television and all of that. So we just turn on the computer and you just type in, like, let's say India, and then there's lots of pictorial image all over the places, wherever it is. But remember, in those days, going to just matter of walking towards the next village is a great experiences. And of course, from this village to the next village, it probably looked very differently. Particularly like a country like India that has such a multi-ethnic country. You actually go to the next village and people are speaking of different languages and different culture. They probably might have looked differently, And so therefore, these merchants have this great opportunity to go to this country and this city, this gated city, and etc., etc. So it must have felt like a completely different world. But each place you go, the truth is truth, and then each one of them suffers, and then how they show the suffering may be different, but the cause is the same. So in another word, let's say, right now, I don't know much about other countries anymore because I have lived in the United States such a long time, and I only go between Japan and the United States. So let's say I, pull out the examples in America. So let's say out of the four noble truths, it always starts with this dukkha. So following the description of this Avatamsaka Sutra's chapter says, in America, in the world called United States of America, dukkha shows up as separation between wealthy and the poor. It shows up in the form of starvation versus overeating. It shows up in the huge ratio of obesity. It shows up in the huge numbers of the people die out of drug addiction, alcoholism, and suicide, particularly in between 40s and 50s, the generation, etc., etc. That is all the listing of the dukkhas. And then you say, in the world called Japan, dukkha shows up in the form of there's no more people who is going to succeed the business any longer. So therefore, the family business has to close down. And then it also shows up there's no more people who will succeed the house anymore. So there are lots of houses abandoned and there's no one who's living there, etc., etc. So it shows up in a different way, but the cause somehow is the same. And that's this chapter is talking about. So please always try to read the sutra in the way you have something going on in your own life or immediate environment. Then it really starts to make sense. So instead of going into some kind of fantastical, imaginary world, etc., etc., that's the divisiveness. That's something you are seeing something as an object outside of you, which is the most important portion. All those Buddhist sutra is pointing out to be careful, be careful. That's not the true reality. So I think that's the portion. Is very important, and I think the question was a very good question. I think I'm sure many of you were actually wondering what is this whole thing about this world and that world, this world, that world. But of course, another portion of that is, of course, I mentioned this a little bit. In my case, I sometimes see. Well, for instance, my whole the building we live in is going through this renovation. So therefore, floor by floor, they are trying to change the carpeting and also wallpaper. So when you take off the wallpaper and the carpeting, of course, what happens is you start to see cockroaches. This is New York City. And then you kind of say, ooh, okay, we have cockroaches. Where did it come from? And then you kind of trace back to the cockroach. And then you really start to recognize, wow, there's a whole big world of insects actually exist in this whole building. That's also interesting. And also, when you are laying down on the ground and trying to rest, and you start to feel something on your skin, and you feel, wow, it's an ant. And then you trace the ant, and then you say, oh, as a matter of fact, underneath where I was just resting, there's this whole world of ants, etc., etc. So that's also kind of interesting idea. So there are multiple numbers of the worlds in our own world. It may be community, or it may be separated nation by nation, or within the nation, separated group of the people. And it may be talking about the animal world, insect world, human world, etc., etc. But it is really consistently true, there are dukkha. So I think this is the way Avatamsaka Sūtra talks about. Now, what I like to do next is, yes, this is an essential teaching. And so therefore, next thing we really need to do is, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to you, in your own life? All of the teachers I studied with, including the teacher who was giving us the lecture series of Avatamsaka Sūtra, mentions it is very important to pay attention to this essential teaching of Buddha, Four Noble Truths, starts with dukkha, because it really means something. The reason is, unless you feel the dukkha, you recognize you have a dukkha. You have a sense of this gap, sense of this, something is not in sync with what I want. And then it can be experienced as a physical discomfort, a mental discomfort, or sometimes it's just simply like real, physical sufferings and pains. But unless you do that, you really don't start to open the door. You really don't start to seek for the remedy, so to speak. So this is very important to recognize the teaching actually starts from dukkha. In another word, dukkha is the leading force for you to enter into the Buddhist teachings. So, for instance, I don't know your life, so I always try to utilize my own experience as an example in hope of you have something similar. And whatever I'm going to talk about, it's not really about me, but it is something I hope you have something resonating within you and within your own life. But in my case, for instance, what brought me to Buddhist teaching is exactly dukkha. I was born in Japan in this city called Kamakura. You might have heard about this town. It was the center, capital, so to speak, in medieval Japan. And then eventually, this town almost became a hub of Zen school. So by the time I'm talking about Kamakura being a capital in 13th century. So I was born in 1955. So many centuries have passed. But then on the process of developing or maintaining this city, somehow this city developed into kind of smallish, quaint little town in the valley of these hills. And then those small valleys were kind of filled with Buddhist temples, particularly Zen temples, particularly Rinzai temples. So Buddhism was always in my experiences as I grow up, but I never really sought after it until what happened was I kind of mentioned this in earlier lectures, but I came to the United States in 1983, and then I was working for media company, and I was a journalist, but I was assigned for reporting news from the United States and Western European nations in the field of arts, entertainments, theater, music, and then also fashion and lifestyle. So therefore, artists have an almost over-proportioned population, LGBTQ population in that world, so to speak, in that community. And then this is 1983, and my first office was situated in the building right in the middle of Greenwich Village. It was Fifth Avenue, 12th Street. So you can guess, suddenly I'm kind of tossed right into, center, epicenter of the early confusion and tremendous tragedy of early AIDS epidemic, out of which eventually 8 million people loses their lives. And then many of them are quite young people. So eventually I ended up deciding to take care of one of my dear friends in my own home. And this is a long story, so I'm going to make it short. And then this man, he was a couple of years younger than me, really was interested in Buddhism by that time. I was interested in Buddhism, but in a very kind of impure motivation. Part of my job was television reporting. So therefore, sometimes I have to go to, most of the things I have to report is from some kind of event site and some from the street, or some people's interview, but surrounded by a group of people. So believe it or not, I'm naturally a very shy person. So I always felt so nervous and going into those group of the people and grab this very well-known, socially very well-known people, and then have to interview them. And then this area of the job at that time was a hugely white job. And then I was usually the only non-white person, and also I have an accent. So non-American person in this large group of the people. So I always got very nervous, and so therefore I give energies to cameraman and the soundman. So what happens is if I keep goofing and then holding up this camera crew and sound crew, eventually if they have to work overtime, I have to pay more out of my budget. So someone told me, Issan, you probably should learn how to meditate. So I also got the book about the Buddhist meditation, and then, I didn't know anywhere to go. And at that time, I don't think in New York City I don't think there are many Buddhist organizations at that time. This is 1983, 84. So what I did was I got the book, and there was a church right across the street from where I used to live, apartment. This is Chelsea. And then I used to just go to the church during the off hours, and church door was open to anybody at that time. Right now for the security reason, they don't do that. This is just completely different time. So you go there, and I just tried to learn by myself how to meditate in a chair in the church. So therefore, I had a little bit of idea what was going on, but this man I decided to take care of towards the end of his life. He really wanted to go to Green Gulch Farm. What happened was he got a hold of course, Zen Mind Beginner's Mind, and this is way before internet. So towards the end of the Zen Mind Beginner Mind, there used to be a listing of San Francisco Zen Center's information. And then he was particularly interested in Green Gulch. And then by that time, we are talking about 1989-ish. He was starting to be a little symptomatic, and I was really worried about sending him to Green Gulch by himself. So therefore, I decided to go with him. And then he takes a bus from San Francisco and goes to Green Gulch by himself, and I say goodbye. But I stay in San Francisco and trying to take care of my own business. I made some sort of excuse project, and so that I was able to go to San Francisco out of the budget from the company. I'm staying in the hotel, and then some days passes, and I start to feel a little antsy because I really worry about him. And I did heard that Green Gulch farm, you're supposed to work. And then I don't know if his health is sustainable to do such a thing, farming and etc. etc. So one day I thought, you know what, I should probably go to see what's going on. So I took a bus and I went to Green Gulch. I know nobody in Green Gulch. But interestingly, as I get off from the bus and I walk into the Green Gulch, and then I'm kind of looking for where is the entrance, and right in front of me, this young man started to come to me and say, hey, it's me. And I just didn't recognize him at the beginning because he was in this work gear. In Manhattan, in New York, he was somebody who's somehow related with the fashion kind of, work. So he was always looking dressed up and etc. So it was like a stunning transformation how he looked. But he looked so good. His eyes were just shining, and I really felt, wow, something really positive and wholesome is going on here. So I decided to stay on with him about a week. And then someone who was taking care of my apartment, I had to call in from time to time, and this man said, Issan, you really need to come back because your puppy is starting to act out. I had a 1-year-old puppy there, and then he was missing us, and he was missing me, and he was starting to misbehave. And then this man who was taking care of him told me, when you come back, I don't think your couch exists anymore. How much they can really chew off. So when I decided to leave, I met this lady who was one of the first group of the board members when Suzuki Roshi started San Francisco Zen Center. Then eventually Suzuki Roshi dies, next person takes over, and then Green Gulch starts. And this is around the time this lady was a part of the San Francisco Zen Center's board. And she told me, she's an artist. For some reason or another, I was introduced to her through my work connection. And then she told me she recently went to this place called Zen Mountain Monastery in East Coast. I told her I really have to go home. And I also told her why I came to Green Gulch. And then she also mentioned, if you are determined to take care of someone who's dying, isn't that actually you who has to be in the practice? Isn't that has to be someone who takes care of someone who's dying has to really clarify the great matter of life and death? That's what she said. I thought, I wasn't still convinced at all. But anyway, she said she recently came back from this place, and then according to what she knows, this place probably has the severest practice system, and maybe you should go there, she said. So I said, well, I'll think about it. But anyway, taking this young man back home, and then on the process of that, I told him about what this lady said. So he gets interested. So he immediately calls Zen Mountain Monastery, and he starts to prepare to join their 7-day session. But right before he was supposed to go, he discovered his first spot of Kaposi's sarcoma. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that. Fortunately, it's already a history. I don't think anybody really leaves their condition to the point that they have this opportunistic disease called Kaposi sarcoma. It's a rare form of skin cancer, but it was really radical cancer. And then, eventually in short 2-3 years or so, this young man is going to be covered from toe to head with this black spot. But this was the first spot he discovered. So therefore, he had to cancel this. So instead of him calling, I decided to call them at the monastery. And because of this, etc., can I have my money back? And then someone who picked up the call mentioned, it was very kind and very polite. And this person mentioned, we don't really refund it, but if you like to, you can change the name of the person who's attending session. And then, my friend really wanted me to go to check it out. So I did go. And then this was the first time I ever joined the session, regardless it's Japan in the United States. When I was a really young man, I did go to Zazenkai in Kamakura, but I never did the session. But I did go, and then on the process of that, I was introduced to this practitioner who's also a pianist and composer. I think it's okay to say his name. His name is Robert Savage. And then he was a quite seasoned practitioner, and he also had a very advanced case of AIDS. And then upon having a conversation with him, and also having a conversation with then abbot and founder, John Daidoruri, all of them basically indicated it's really a significant thing that you really decided to take care of someone who's definitely going to die. But yes, I think we all agree with this lady telling me it's actually caregiver's job to deepen your practice and then try to clarify the great matter of life death. So this is how I actually entered into serious practice. So again, unless I had the sense of suffering, dukkha, I didn't enter it. I think it's kind of like a typical story. I'm not particularly feeling I'm really unique at all. Because as I start to, study Buddhism, particularly, for instance, Gautama Buddha himself started this exploration of true meaning because of the sense of dukkha. And also, many people's stories are written in Pali-canon and old text, and all of them, I can say 100% enters into this quest for the way because of this sense of dukkha. So eventually all these people somehow comes to the point for verification, clarification, or solace or comfort, shall we say. So in another word, it is really true. Aoyama Roshi often recaps this. We often try to be saved from sufferings. In the end, you actually discover suffering saved you, So this Four Noble Truth has this very interesting structure, shall we say. This really indicates how we come into the practice and how it should be, in another word. And also, in another word, what Aoyama Roshi describes, this is the structure you come to hope you are saved from, rescued from the suffering, but in the end you recognize suffering, dukkha, actually saved you. Yeah, it's very interesting, I think. So this really leads us, many of us are getting old. particularly in this Sangha. I think I'm the oldest one, but average age is quite high. And then I think not as much as Japan, but America is also becoming one of those aging, older community. There are more and more people, like when you see the medium age, I have heard Japan's medium age is unbelievably mid-40s. This is really like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Vis-a-vis many of those nations, like in African continent, their medium age is, unbelievably 18. So therefore, those are the people who can expect the future to be possible. But most of the nations in like Western Europe and also United States of America, there's an aging population is really shifting to the majority. So we often deal with process of aging. There are some diseases and illness and dysfunctioning of the body, etc., etc. So we often take it as a suffering, but just like I couldn't choose my parents to be born, you really can't choose how you die and how you become sick. It's just completely up to this interdependent origination. Yes, it may some portion of it is my lifestyle, but this lifestyle itself is also somehow interdependent origination products. So therefore, in another word, it's a gift from this entirety. So if you really start to see what your condition is, what you are kind of struggling with, not from the aspect of, this is a struggle, this is a pain, this is a suffering, but to stretching it into Buddha Dharma. And if you start to take it as a part of the, gifts, and then, how you take care of it is probably very different. Instead of, venting and bitching and all of that, we can always kind of step aside. It is very difficult to do so when you're physically suffering, but at the same time, there's a moment of the almost like a soberness when you are not really completely captured by this sense of complaints and physical pain and mental pain. There's a little moment you can create, and then you really start to see, can I learn something out of this? After all, this is the situation given to me. So just like my life was given to me, I always feel, what shall I do with this life? How about considering, can I learn something from this moment of suffering? So this way, things changes, really completely shift around. Aoyama Roshi, I think this book is very famous. Aoyama Roshi published so many books. But many of them became best-selling books, and quite a few of them has been translated into Western languages outside of Japan. But this book particularly was translated both in Italian and French, I think. French and Italian consecutively. This is the book about, it's a very interesting book. Aoyama Roshi is also a teacher of Kado. Kado is the way of a flower. It's not flower arrangement. It is about asking flower to talk about the Dharma together with the person who handles the flower. So what she does is she has her own garden in her own temple. And then out of the garden, she takes those flowers they are cultivating there, or sometimes it's wild flower, and then place it into, vase with a theme. And then she talks about that theme as an essay here. I think this started as a weekly or monthly contribution to some magazine. But because of the huge, response from the readers, the publisher decided to make into like a coffee table book. So you get to see her own creation of the, flower arrangement that talks about the Dharma, expresses the Dharma, and then Aoyama Roshi hears the sound of the Dharma of flowers expanding and then write it down into human language. And so this is like a collaboration. It's really an impressive book. But one of them is this flower arrangement. I hope you can see this. This is the typical Zen way of arranging the flower, utilizing the type of the flowers and type of the leaves. Normally, if you take it as a flower arrangement, you don't use, because those are the leaf that's bitten by insects. These are the flowers and petals and leaves that was already fallen down. And then the theme of this is when you place these, so to speak, diseased flower or diseased leaf or fallen leaf, fallen flower, you are actually putting your life itself into the vase, and then you are trying to appreciate it. And the title here is very interesting. It says Namu. Namu is being one with. Yes. Sometimes we say Namu Shakyamuni Butsu. Namu being one with Gautama Buddha. Sometimes we say Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, being one with wondrous Dharma of Lotus Sutra. Sometimes we say Nam Amitabutsu, being one with Amitabha Buddha. Being one with Amitabha Buddha is a proclamation of your own, determination to continue to practice moment by moment, ever and ever. Because Amitabha Buddha is a symbolic way of talking about continuity and then also unendingness of our practice. Instead, she says, Namu Byoki Daibosatsu. Byoki is illness, Dai is Maha, Bosatsu is Bodhisattva. So, being one with illness, Maha Bodhisattva. And the point is, illness is a great Bodhisattva who came to us so that we can learn more and more deeply and clarify deeper and wider about Dharma. One of our dear friends of the Sangha members was when I first met this lady, she was 30, I think she was in mid-30s, and she comes from this family. Her mother died of kidney disease at the age of 38, and her mother's mother, grandmother, also died with the same kidney disease, dysfunction, at the age of 38. And I think she was coming soon to come to 38 years old. And she was already starting to be quite symptomatic with the disorder of kidney. And then, this is a genetic condition, just like my back, just like my spine. And so she was really starting to think about how her mother died, and she of course remembers as a younger child. And then she also remembers how her mother was frightened to die with the same illness because it's an inherited disease from her mother's side. And now she's really reflecting on her mother, her grandmother, and am I just going to give up and die just like they did? Or, right now, this is a completely different generation, different time. There's some way to find kidney transplant. But, in this nation, this whole healthcare system, particularly insurance system, It's very interesting country. Health insurance, when you pay such amount to health insurance, and then when you have something going on, you really need health insurance to cover. Health insurance side of the job is to keep denying payment. So therefore, this lady was also trying to find a way, but then she was really discouraged about, no, we are not going to pay for that. No, we are not going to pay for that. Let us examine this. But by doing so, she was getting worse and worse and worse. And that was around the time I met her. And then this was also around the time I have heard that our French Dharma friends and Italian Dharma friends were really interested in this book, and then they were translating this. So I pulled out this book, and then I was showing her, and then I showed that Namu Byoki Daibosatsu, being one with a great illness bodhisattva. And then I was trying to kind of spontaneously translate what Aoyama Roshi was talking about. Take this as a gift instead of taking it as almost like a fatalistic tragedy. Yes, it is a tragedy, but at the same time, right here, right now, what can I do? And also, we are lucky to be born in this society with the high technology of medical advancement, medical technology advancement. Yes, it is very difficult because of this very strange health insurance system, but at the same time, there's something you can do. That's the message this young lady got. And what happened was she went through this really long process. I think it took her 2 more years. But shortly before she hit that age, that crucial age, 38 years old, she actually found a donor. And then she went through this difficult surgery, but she also recovered from the surgery. And then what happened was now she's very active, so they're healthy. So therefore, she decided to get a job for this healthcare agency who now connects the donor between someone who's looking for the donor. So, this is an incredible story, I think. So therefore, she really is like, epitomized symbolically, almost like becoming a representative of someone who understood this Four Noble Truths. And she really went through, suffering. Through suffering, she found the way. And then eventually she comes out as a person who now helps the others. So I think this teaching is fascinating. If you really clearly see the teaching, and if you really willing to apply this teaching and experience and experiment in your own life, many things really happens, I think. Okay. In the same manner, I remember this, funny episode written in Uchiyama Roshi's episode together with the Sawaki Roshi. When Uchiyama Roshi became the disciple of Sawaki Roshi, and then this whole story. The day coincidentally they decided as a ordination ceremony take place because in our tradition it often takes place on the day of Buddha's enlightenment day because we go through these 8 days of 1 whole week of session, and at the end of the session it's usually the morning of December 8th, and then based on that tradition. And this is the time when this morning star shows up. At that moment, Gautama Buddha comes out from the samadhi and something just completely clarified. So this is enlightenment day. So therefore, those are the days we often prefer to be an ordination day. But this is, I think, 1941, December 8th in Japan, it's December 7th in America. So, do you remember something called Pearl Harbor? So it was such strange karmic, action. And then shortly after, Japan goes into almost like a completely full swing into anti-Buddhism, because Buddhism tends to become strong voice for the peacemaking, non-dichotomy, etc., etc. So in those times of complete separation, Buddhism often tends to be the focus or target of basically harassment and persecution. So many Japanese Buddhist priests were disrobed, and some people were placed into prison, and then many temples were somehow semi-destroyed or completely destroyed. So therefore, someone like Sawaki Roshi, Uchiyama Roshi, who didn't have any specific residing temple, had to leave. They were actually asked to leave from the temple, and they have absolutely no place to go. There was no expectation. But anyway, for some reason or another, they survived through those 4 years of a really hard life. Then after that, they found out Antaiji can be a place, Sawaki Roshi can come and rest. And then, therefore, someone needs to be residing in Antaiji. So Sawaki Roshi decided Uchiyama Roshi should be the one. So this is early years of after the war. Uchiyama Roshi is residing in Antaiji, and then Sawaki Roshi comes back from time to time. And Uchiyama Roshi, because of Sawaki Roshi is still actively teaching, many people started to arrive, Antaiji. So the numbers growing. So this is kind of recovery time after the war. And then one day, Uchiyama Roshi says, Sawaki Roshi suddenly shows up. And I think they didn't know Sawaki Roshi's schedule at that time. So he comes back, but it was in the middle of some kind of work going on. So therefore, they were trying to take something out from this whole shelving system and then trying to clean the shelves and putting the things back. But unfortunately, the timing was really bad, and Sawaki Roshi came in the middle of this complete chaos. So Sawaki Roshi starts to shout. When he shouts, it's like a lion's roar, and everyone was like, "Ooh!" He has a really strong voice, like from the bottom of the hollow abyss. So therefore, but by that time, Uchiyama Roshi somehow learned how to maneuver that, and Sawaki Roshi really scolds Uchiyama Roshi, "What the mess you are creating!" And then Uchiyama Roshi listens and listens and listens. When Sawaki Roshi's voice somehow subsides, Uchiyama Roshi says, "Yes, teacher, but we are living as Zazen, as the pivotal core of our life. You just came in the middle of, this work, but please do know our life, our pivot, the core is still Shikanta Zazen." Then Sawaki Roshi was like, "Oh, okay." And then he didn't say anything at all. And then sometimes Sawaki Roshi says something about Uchiyama Roshi being this way and being that way and being that way. And then one day Sawaki Roshi said, "You are someone who has just filled with delusions." And then Uchiyama Roshi said, "Yes, yes, yes." And then he tells back to Sawaki Roshi, "Yes, Sawaki Roshi, but I need to keep delusions, because these delusions makes me understand other people who is in suffering. And I am in this position, I have to listen to these people who's coming here to Antaiji and goes on and on and on about this suffering. If I don't have the delusion, if I don't have those experience of suffering, I cannot really relate to them. Therefore, I cannot give them, offer them the right direction to go." And then Sawaki Roshi was like, "Oh, okay." And he didn't say anything. This is Four Noble Truths. It is exactly. So, I just remember this story. I wasn't really going to go into the full swing of this, explaining this episode, but it just came to me. Sorry, I took so much time. But come to think about that, when I was speaking about this episode, yes, it is really about Four Noble Truths, which Yamanoshi was trying to talk about. It's very interesting. Now, I need to close this chapter, but at the end of the closure, I just like to give a little more like conceptual, informational, stuff as well. We all find it very interesting that the Buddha's teaching always starts from observation of right here, right now. It's never about assumption. So, in another word, his teaching is never assuming, well, if I do that, maybe eventually in the future, I may be there. So in another word, he never taught like, if you do this, eventually you will be like me. Or in another word, if you do this process and if you do this practice, if you study koan, if you just do this mondo several times, and then eventually in about 10 years or 15 years, you will get kensho and you will be a Buddha, and then etc. He never does that. He always starts with right here, right now. His teaching. So therefore, it's set in the motion from his first preaching, Dharma, Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths is really talking about if right here, right now, you recognize dukkha, that's the entry. So you really have to see now. This process, unfortunately, after Gautama Buddha's death, and then Buddhism becomes almost like an organized religion in 200 years and 300 years or so. And then all these monks and priests were, their expenses are covered by kings and aristocrats. Something starts to change. So therefore, despite the fact that the Gautama Buddha always taught, let's take a look at the right here, right now, and then see what is the cause of that brought this suffering. Instead, this process changes into, let's say there's an ignorance. And let's say because of the ignorance, it leads into this, and leads into this, and leads into this, leads into this, and therefore it will lead into suffering. So therefore, you really have to do something about the ignorance. But that's assumption. Ignorance doesn't always makes you recognize this existential gap. Because take a look at those billionaires who are running this city, or maybe this nation. Don't you think they look so happy? These people have absolutely no wish to, think about the spiritual, etc., etc. I don't think any of those people are seriously interested in Buddhist teaching because, they don't really see any kind of existential gap. Everything is just, they have everything. So ignorance doesn't particularly makes you awake. In another word, it's such a kind of like a blessed moment that you really recognize some sort of pains and sufferings and frustration. And very often it's presented in the time of a challenge. Sometimes it is about your own, health issue, or someone you loved is going through difficulty, or someone you loved just died, etc., etc. And this is really like right here, right now, the suffering moment. Then it leads you into, and that's always the Buddha's way. So, and also Buddha's way of examining right here, right now, and see the cause and do something about the cause is really like a medical prototype. Unless you recognize you are sick, you don't go to see a doctor. And then very often, many people don't recognize your sickness. And then you don't go to the doctor. And by the time something really serious happens, it's too late. So it's actually a good thing that you have a pain. And the pain is something propels you to go see a doctor. In the same manner, we can actually start to seek for the teaching. So yes, this is actually historical information to take a look at this process of evolution of Dharma, and also it's not like a linear evolution. In some era we make mistakes and we try to correct it and bring it back to the original teaching, etc., etc. I'm going to talk about this very often in the new series on ancient Buddhism, because many people think, particularly if some people who enters Buddhist teaching through Southern Buddhism, Vipassana type of a group, they often think Pali Canon is the right textbook, and this is something Gautama Buddha taught, which is actually not true. Pali Canon is a mishmash of a hint of what, as close as possible, of if there's such a person called Gautama Buddha historically existed. Most of us actually believe he existed, but we don't really actually know what exactly he taught. But if you really take a look at the older layer of it, there's a really clear hint and indication. But unfortunately, as it goes on to the process of oral tradition into written tradition in the stretch of almost 500 years, many things changes and added in. So when you take a look at the Pali Canon, you can, if you are somebody who has a clear sense of observation or clear sense of reading the text, you can immediately tell there's lots of contradiction written in there. So my series on ancient Buddhism is really going through all this web of misinformation, correct information, which is proven by this great effort of those academia, Buddhist academia, particularly since 1970s, incorporating all of those new information, and then you really want to grasp the core of the teaching out of that, and how it really correctly or incorrectly develops into the next this process. And for some reason or another, because of this large numbers of the people's effort for century after century, the core portion is held and given to Dogen's generation, and fortunately to our generation. So I really like to show this process, and then by doing so, you may find many information you thought you grasped, understood, was actually already overcome by our new researches, particularly in the last 150 years, particularly in the last 50 years. Then it may actually correct your practice or understanding of Buddha's teaching. That's the purpose, goal of my new series of ancient Buddhism. It is really not about revering a Pali Canon text, but it is really about exploring what is the golden gold, hidden into this mine. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the other series so much. So I think I'm going to wrap up this chapter 8 at this point, and then we go into chapter 9 now. Let's see. Chapter 9, you have probably already recognized the first sets of the chapter. After introduction, we are talking about what the Dharma is about, and also adding in that what the Dharma, how shall we live in? And then each chapter, it's very poetic and ornate, but at the same time it has some kind of a theme to talk about. How about talking about the Buddha Dharma Buddha way this way, or that way, or this way. So for instance, the chapter we just read is really illuminating Buddha Dharma and Buddha way from this fundamental teaching of Four Noble Truths. The next chapter utilizes this word komyo, radiant light, and then this is the one sense it is a strong light to clarify the darkness, illuminate the darkness, and it really shows great matter or shows the true reality. But also point in this chapter particularly is once this teaching starts to illuminate true reality, you really start to see equality and shabets. Byodo and shabets. So equality in the individuality. And you really start to, recognize, if I use the word from a Prajnaparamita Sutra, the trajectory of ku and shiki. In another word, if I use the Dogen's word, trajectory between spring and flower. So in the current, common language we're using, it's byodo. I explained this in the previous lectures. Byodo, equality, shabetsu, individuality. And then this is the way this chapter really talks about Buddha Dharma and Buddha way. And also, it utilizes this very visual effect because it is the 10 verses, one after another. And once you hear this one verse, this radiant light goes, wow! And the next, verses going even further. And so therefore, verse versus verse, poems after poems, this illumination, rippling effect, wave starting to spread. So this is also symbolic way of talking about Buddha's teaching spreading. And again, I just want you to remember it's about you. So therefore, it is something internally happening as well. Yes, probably at this time they really felt something happened 2,500 years ago. For them, it is about 800, 900 years ago in India. Something is starting to spread. And also, this is merchants are contributing. So merchants are also, spreading the teaching. But teaching is actually something revolutionizes within you. So therefore, this light is starting to illuminate within me, and I'm really starting to understand clearer and clearer and clearer. So this is a really interesting, very Avatamsaka Sūtra-esque, visual effect. It's a very interesting. I think this is a beautiful chapter. So first of all, this word they use, komyo. First of all, let's open the page 200. Sorry, I have my book on my right side. Chapter 9, Radiant Enlightenment. Radiant Enlightenment is the translation of komyo kaku. Hon is a chapter, so komyo is radiant light. Let's see. I'm going to show you on the shared screen. This is the chapter, right? English translation in this version is Radiant Enlightenment, but Hon is a chapter, so it doesn't matter. Komyo is originally Sanskrit word is Aloka, but komyo, ko is light, myo is illumination, radiant. So you can say radiant light, radiance, illumination, whatever the way you like. Again, we don't have a fixated word to translate, but in Sino-Japanese, this is the Buddhist terminology, komyo. And then in Sanskrit, it's aloka. And then this kaku is translated as enlightenment. And as you know, as a student of Okumura Roshi, we really like to be careful about this word enlightenment, because particularly in America, this word enlightenment is almost like a signature word for those people who think there's some kind of numinum out there. And then when you grasp it, when you see it, you are enlightened. But so therefore, trying to stay away from that very commonly misunderstood image, Okumura Roshi usually like to use this word as he has three different usage: verification, clarification, and then awakening. So I think this is more like awakening to, clarification of the Dharma. It's very visceral, sometimes something happens and you feel, oh, that's what it means. Don't you have that moment? And it's almost like you just woke up to the fact that was always here, which wasn't clear to me, but it was always here. So that's the word kaku means. Practically, it awakens. So that's the name of the chapter. And then let's start to read a little bit, okay? I think I still have a little time. Oh, do I? Yes, 20 more minutes, yes? So, chapter 9, if you do have this book, and I have to bring this book in front of me. This is page 283, starts chapter 9. Some of you do use e-version of the book, but I think the pagination is the same. It starts with, at that time, from the wheel signs of the bottoms of his 2 feet, this his is Buddha. The Tathagata emitted hundreds of quantities of light rays, and this is komyo, which illuminated this great trikilocosm, which means entire world, including its hundreds quantities of Jambudvivas. I explained this origin of this word Jambudvipa. It originates from, mythological way of looking at India for indigenous Indian people. This is one of the 4 continents in this world, and then South continent, which has lots of this beautiful tree called Jambu, is called Jambudvipa. That's actually India, if you have to have that image. And it's hundreds quantities of, it's about this place, right here, right now, wherever you are situated, and wherever you are looking at this video from. Let's say, it's 100 quantities of etc. It's 100 quantities of such and such, it's 100 quantities, etc. I'm kind of skipping to read this because it's a typical Avatamsaka. This and this and this and this. So this is the image of light is illuminated and it goes all over the place, like rippling effect, rippling waves. Now, so in another word, right after this scene, Manjushri is talking about Four Noble Truth, which was a very interesting chapter. Scene completely changes. So again, I talked about theatricality of this Avatamsaka Sūtra. So you can, if you are somebody who's familiar with the theaters or movies, etc., you can just visualize. Now scene changes from one spotlighted place to it blackout, and then another spotlight, and then it shows a completely different scene. And in this scene, Tathagata is sitting, and then Tathagata from his sign of bottom of his 2 feet starts to illuminate the light. Are you familiar with this? It is again typical language utilized from Pali Canon, but again changing the meaning of it. This is about the 32 characteristics of Gautama Buddha or Tathagata. It doesn't have to be Gautama Buddha, Tathagata. In ancient time in India, all of those sages, not just Gautama Buddha, used to have 32 marks, 32 physical characteristics. And then so therefore, the legend goes, when Gautama Buddha shows up in this world, and as Gautama Buddha becomes a very well-known enlightened person, very well-known teacher, people tend to ask as a almost like a mark of authorization, does this new man who's everybody is talking about, does he have 32 marks? So in Pali Canon, this story is repeatedly talked about. So of course this is an added story in many latter years, but I find it kind of interesting symbolically. So I made a list for you. Hold on, I'm going to use the shared screen again. This is Buddha's 32 marks. I'm going to read on all of the 33. So that, after this, we don't really have to talk about this. I can just say something and you remember, But anyway, this is kind of interesting. Again, I said that this is Buddha's 32 marks, but please remember, this is not Buddhism, this is not Buddha's. It was said even pre-existing time of Buddhism, or Gautama Buddha himself, this was an Indian tradition to think that enlightened person or important sage should have those 32 marks. Number one, he has well-placed feet. This is for the great man, the venerable Gautama, a mark of great man. I'm sorry, I took it from a Pali Canon, so it has a little additional, ornamentation of the word. So he has a well-placed feet. And then number two, under the sole, here we go. His feet, they have wheels. This is a mark of wheels. And then 1,000 limbs and naves complete in every way. What they are talking about, it has a wheel, mark of the wheels. It has 1,000 spokes, so to speak, in this kind of like a design of this wheel on the both feet. This eventually becomes iconology we know very well. So I'm going to go back to number two afterward. But then let me just go through this 32 first. Heels are long and deep. In another word, he had a flat feet. There was no bend, flat feet. So that's also designed into iconology. Fingers are long, and then hands and feet are soft and tender, which actually talks about, have you noticed Gautama Buddha image is always depicted a little like a chunky man? In those days, wealthy people have access to food. So this is also some sort of a depiction of this person has a good upbringing. So therefore, he had a well-nourished body. And then also, if the body, hands and feet are soft and tender, it means he never really engaged in hard physical labor. Hands and feet are webbed, and ankles are high. Calves are like an antelope. So this is very, kind of athletic. When he stands without bending, he can rub and stroke both his knees with his hands. I wish I could do that. What is covered by cloth, this is male organ, is unsheathed. This portion is always makes the Westerners kind of like, what? They are not talking about the circumcision. In this way of talking about his male organ, they are talking about carnal desire is well controlled. But the image is so much like a horse, male organ. So people start to think, wow. And also, there's an interesting sutras written in Pali Canon. But anyway, let me just go through. Number 11, he's golden in color. That actually even depicted in Mahaparinibbana Sutra, which we will be studying on Mondays as of, winter angle. In another word, his skin looks like gold. It shines and it looks very healthy. And he has a fine skin. Because of the fine skin, dust and dirt do not adhere to him. I think you have heard many stories, even in Zen text. When something happens, there's a beautiful flowers are always shaking the petals and coming down on you. But if you are really enlightened person, it doesn't stay on your skin. If you are somebody who's familiar with the koans, that depiction actually happens pretty often in koan's story. This actually comes from all the way to those days. The body hairs arise singly, each body hair appearing in its own hair follicles. The hair brittles. His brittling hair is blue or dark blue. So, have you ever paid attention to your Buddha statue? If you ever bought the Buddha statue from an authentic place, in another word, if you have gone to like Japan and bought the Buddha statue there, you have recognized if it's painted in blue. Hair is not painted in black. My Buddha statue, I was given by someone I know from a temple. So it's blue. And then it has this kind of like a knob on the top of the head. It's not like what's the word they use? Men's bun. But it is kind of shaped that way. The scalp is shaped that way. That's the what they are talking about. The limbs are straight like Brahmas. There are 7 prominent marks. The torso is like a lion's. Between the shoulders, it is firm. The body is well proportioned like a banyan tree. In another word, it's kind of massive, The extent of arm span equals the extent of the body. The upper back is even and all round. Come to think about that, all of the Buddha statue is depicted like kind of, roundish shoulder. The taste buds are supremely sensitive. Jaw is like a lion's. There are 40 teeth. The teeth are even. Teeth are without the gap. The teeth are very white. Tongue is very large. This tongue is very large in Chozetsu, in Sino-Japanese. And then it is utilized as a symbolic way of how Buddha's expanding Dharma reaches to everywhere. So many of them in Pali Canon is just a physical description. But in Mahayana Buddhism, it changes the meaning into a more symbolic way to understand why they really said these things. Eyes are blue, like a sapphire eyes, deep blue. This is also very interesting. Shakyamuni Buddha was Aryans who are not originated in subcontinent of India, but several thousand years ago, people started to migrate from the area between current Black Sea and Kapis Sea, and those are the people who are described as Aryans in India. So therefore, he's more like Caucasians, in another word. So this is a very interesting portion. And probably this is the reason why those Greek people, the descendant of Alexander the Great, felt very familiar with, Gautama Buddha's, physicality and etc., etc. The eyelashes are like cows, the tuft of hair between eyebrows. on his forehead is very white like a cotton. So there's a little bit of a small bunch of the hair, and it's white. It's curly in between the eyebrows. Your Buddha statue also has this little dot, I think. There's a protuberance on the head. This is for the great man, the Venerable Gautama, a mark of a great man, etc., etc. You know, I just have to give you a little funny episode. I probably shouldn't, but you know, Paricanon is kind of hard to read, right? Because it's so repetitious and go on and on and on and on. So sometimes you need a sense of humor to read that. You know, Mahaparinibbana Sutra comes from the long discourse. It's like a collection of the longer sutras. And then in that, I would say there are about 5 or 6 sutras about Gautama Buddha's mark are discussed about. So someone comes from the other tradition, and then he has heard about the great thing about Gautama Buddha, but he can't really believe in it. Then he asks, does Gautama Buddha has 32 marks? Because it's a sign of a great man. And then he says, yes, he has this and this and that. But at the same time, there's a couple of things you really can't, discover. Unless one of them is male organ. And then another one is his long tongue. And then tradition goes on and becomes really large and expanded. And then tradition, this legend starts to say, when he pulls out the tongue, he can touch his forehead. It's kind of monstrous and it's awkward and strange, right? But anyway, that's the belief system in the indigenous Indian people. So in this Paricanon, several times people are wondering, he has 30 and it's quite, visible, but we don't know about those 2. So then someone asks Gautama Buddha saying, can I see those 2? And then he, Sutta doesn't depict what exactly Gautama Buddha did, how he showed this. But the next scene is he returns to his group of people. Yeah, he showed it to me. Yes, he does have 32 marks. So, to start with, you really have to deal with the Paricanon with a little bit of a sense of humor, because it's really crushed with, old superstition and etc. And also, these Abhidharma time, they really didn't understand the deeper meaning of what Gautama Buddha was depicted in the previous time, and they just wrote it down as it is, they have heard, without really showing the deeper meaning. So we have to wait until Mahayana Buddhism arises, and Mahayana Buddhism really start to re-examine what's written in, Paricanon, and they actually thrashes off the portion they don't think this is the original teaching. And then if they keep some of those portions, they really take the meaning differently. And then it starts to become a very symbolic way of teaching something else. And then Avatamsaka Sūtra is like a transitional time. So you really start to see, oh, this is how things changed. So therefore, this wheel sign is one of them. Let's see, let me open the shared screen again. This wheel sign is translated a little differently here, but this is the original word, Sempukurin. Sempukurin is literally can translate as a 1,000-spoked wheel. Maybe during the break, you can Google 1,000-spoke wheel. Or if you are somebody who can read and write this word, it actually shows better because English internet world really doesn't have much information or correct information about the Buddhism. But it shows you like depicted image. So the image is based on that description of the, his physical mark. It's a flat feet. Is that the word we use in American English? Flat feet. So therefore, he steps on something and he leaves the footstep. And then you can see the footstep. And eventually it will be, etched on the stone and utilized as almost like iconology to revere. And then there's a whole bunch of them was created. And then in the middle of this, there's a wheel that has 1,000 spokes. Very often in the time they are etching into the stone, they couldn't etch 1,000, but there are many, many, many of those. And that's the symbol of his Dharma wheel turning. Because the time those depiction was started to be made, it was already the time of arisal of Mahayana Buddhism. So therefore, they don't really use it as just a literal, mark of the body, but it going to be utilized as a symbolic or metaphorical way of usage, which I like to talk about at the beginning of the next session. Unfortunately, time is up. So this is the time for lunch break. So I'll see you in about an hour, and I'm going to pick up from this Senbukurin, 1,000 spoke footmark of Buddha, and what it means, etc., etc. Okay, thank you very much, and I see you later.